Did you know you can rewire your nervous system to heal your body and mind? I'm Ashley DiLello, mind coach and creator of bioemotional healing, a process based in neuroscience to rewire the nervous system out of stress and create mind-body freedom. Join me on this podcast as I show you how to harness the brain's incredible power to set you free. All right, welcome back, everyone. I cannot tell you how excited I am to have this conversation with Hal. And let me tell you, Hal, I heard you on Tom Bilyeu's podcast 4 years ago, and I was in the depths of my second life-altering health experience. And I'm hearing you talk about you and your two life-altering health experiences. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a kindred spirit, a soul. Like, we have lived different but similar paths. And I just felt instantly connected to you as someone who's done it twice, and your perspective and how you took charge of your life. And we both have been told that we were living in denial of our realities, our diagnoses. And I just felt an instant connection to you. And I was like, one day we're going to meet. And that happened to us in the most random way, right?
That's
a couple months ago, just you were sitting at a cafe my husband and I walked into, and I just had this moment of like, oh my goodness, there's Hal Elrod. And I kind of stalked you to one of the aisles to be like, I've got to introduce myself because he is in my hometown, just right here, 4 years later.
Yeah.
Must be meant to be. So I'm so excited to have you here.
Yeah. Whether you call it manifesting or law of attraction or a miracle or coincidence, like whatever you want to call it. The fact that, you kind of like had that intention, and then at any time, that we were both at that cafe at that same time, I was in town for a speech. And yeah, I'm really, really grateful that we're sitting here now.
Yeah, it's incredible. And it made me think of how you live your life and life choices, right? Because of all the different places to eat. I know you found your way there because of the type of food that it serves. And my husband and I, of all places on our date night, it's not fancy, but it is good, clean, real food. And I'm like, that's where I want to go because I want to feel good.
That's it.
And there we are. So choices matter, right?
Yep. And we're kindred spirits in that way too. Like for me, it's like people are like, oh, my wife or whoever, let's try this really good restaurant. I'm like, what about it's really good? Is there produce organic? Is there beef grass fed? Is there chicken pasture raised? Right? Like, well, no. But like, it tastes really good and the atmosphere is awesome. Like, that's the last on my list.
You want to feel good after, right? So anyhow, of course, we'll dive into aspects of that too. Hal, you are so well known. Your story is really incredible. But for those who might really be hearing it for the first time, I just want to start when your life changed the first time and the journey that brought you to, because I know there's a health component, but I know there's a professional component as well, where you really started to understand, I've got to manage and condition my mind, right? That impacts my life. And let's just start from the beginning and take me up to today.
Yeah. So the little bit of prequel is when I was 19, I started a career in sales. So I was a DJ on the radio. That was my dream that I was pursuing. I went by Yo Pal Hal on 97.1 FM, today's hit music. But so that was what I was doing. And then a buddy of mine took me in for an interview to Cutco Cutlery, high quality American made kitchen knives. And I was like, dude, I'm not a salesperson. I'm a DJ. I have no desire. And he's like, just come with me. So we go in and I'm like, whoa, I'm only making like $10 an hour at the radio station. I'm a newbie. Here, I actually would earn a great living and I could set my own hours and all these things. So I start down that path. And in my first 10 days, I sell more Cutco kitchen knives than anyone in the Western half of the United States in the 50-year history of the company.
Wow.
And like, as a really mediocre kid, like I wasn't that guy where I was good at things as a young, I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't popular. So this was like my breakout into like fulfilling my potential, if you will. So you fast forward a year and a half later, and that brings us to kind of this first life-altering scenario. I was driving home after I gave a speech at a Cutco conference, and I was driving a brand new Ford Mustang. I had saved up my commissions, and I had bought my first new car 3 weeks prior. And a drunk driver in a full-size Chevy truck, much larger than my Ford Mustang, got on the freeway heading the wrong direction. And I don't remember seeing the headlights coming at me, but he crossed over the center divide, over the median, and we collided head on at 70 to 80 miles per hour. And the airbags exploded. I was, probably knocked unconscious. The worst was actually yet to come. My car spun off the drunk driver, and the car behind me crashed into my driver's side door, directly into my door at 70 miles an hour, give or take. And instantly, the left side of the door crushed the left side of my body, and I broke 11 bones. So I broke my arm in 2 pieces behind my elbow. I shattered my elbow. I severed my radial nerve in my forearm. I broke all of the bones in my eye socket. My ear was almost completely severed. And then my pelvis was crushed between the center console, and it broke 3 separate places. And my femur, the biggest bone in the human body, broke in half, and like one half came out the side of my leg. And anyway, sorry to get too graphic, but so I was in, critical condition, and it instantly I started losing blood. I was in a coma. Thank God I was in a coma immediately, so at least I wasn't fully conscious and aware of this pain that I would have been in. And it took the paramedics an hour to cut the roof off, and when they did, they pulled me out, and I had bled to death. And when they pulled me out of the car, my heart stopped beating, and I stopped breathing, and I was clinically dead for approximately 6 minutes. And then I was rushed onto a helicopter, flown to the hospital, spent 6 days in a coma, and woke up to find out I was in this car accident. I have permanent brain damage. I have 11 broken bones. I'm probably never going to walk again. To keep a long story not so long, I made the decision I can't change that I was in a car accident. So there's no point in feeling sorry for myself, in being a victim. The only thing I can control is my mindset, my attitude, accepting the things I can't change, and focusing all of my energy on trying to walk again, even though the doctors say I'm not going to walk again. And 3 weeks later, I took my first step, and the doctors thought I was crazy and in denial. And, the rest is kind of history, as they say.
Jeez. Now, people would say that's not a normal reaction to wake up. And especially, my work's all rooted in the brain, something that happens in a non-predictable way, right? Your life is completely altered in a moment. That has just a profound impact, not just on you, but your nervous system, because it's like, what happened to my life in one moment? And now people are, you're hearing the news that I would say is a lot of people's worst nightmare, right? Yeah. Not walking again. And your reaction is, I would say, not the normal reaction. Sure. So I know there's some roots in that type of thinking. So talk to me about that, because I'm sure people are like, wait, I can't even fathom, going to that mindset.
Let's bridge that gap, because there is a bridge. And a year and a half before my car accident, that was when I started my career in sales for Cutco. And on my second day of training, our manager, my mentor, he was in my wedding. We became very good friends. He was there the night of the accident. He was like a mile behind me. So he was at the hospital with me. So his name's Jesse. And Jesse taught me this thing called the 5-minute rule. And essentially the 5-minute rule says, when something goes wrong and, not according to plan, unexpected, you fail, you're rejected, whatever it is, something goes wrong that you didn't want to happen. He taught us to literally set our timer for 5 minutes. By the way, this is in the context of, he goes, you're about to start a career in sales. Most people get rejected every once in a while. You're going to get rejected every day, probably multiple times a day. Most people fail every once in a while. You're going to fail at least once a week, maybe more. He's like, you need a tool to be able to move through adversity quickly, right? And so he taught us this 5-minute rule, where when something goes wrong, you set your timer for 5 minutes, and you get 5 minutes to bitch, moan, complain, cry, feel sorry for yourself, bang your hand on the wall, like whatever you got to do. Feel the feelings. Don't suppress them. Don't deny them. But he's like, but don't dwell on them for an unhealthy extended period of time. So when the timer goes off after 5 minutes, and you've had your 5 minutes to feel sorry for yourself and bitch, moan, and complain, he taught us to say 3 very simple but powerful words. And those words are, can't change it. It's an acknowledgement. I can't change what happened 5 minutes ago. So right now I have to deal with reality. And I can either, there's two choices, right? It's a fork in the road. I can either continue to be upset over something I can't change, which doesn't change the thing, it just makes me upset. Or I can accept my life exactly as it is, reality exactly as it is. And here's the very important distinction for everybody listening. when you accept life as it is, it doesn't mean you're happy about it, right? I wasn't happy if a customer canceled their big order that I was celebrating, or obviously if I was in a car accident. But it's much more powerful than that, because Ashley, happiness is an emotion, and emotions are fleeting, right? We've all been happy 1 minute, and then, you get bad news, and now you're distraught. Now you're angry. Now you're upset, right? And so emotions are short-lived. And when you accept life exactly as it is, when you apply this 5-minute rule, and this can't change it philosophy, it's not that you're happy, it's more powerful, where in between your positive emotional states over here. So if you're not watching this, you can picture me, I'm holding my right hand and my left hand up in front of to each side of my head. The right hand represents the positive emotional states like happiness and joy and gratitude and excitement. We're always pursuing those. And then the left hand represents all the painful emotional states like anger and resentment and fear and depression, you name it. And when you accept life exactly as it is, if you bring those hands together, they meet in the middle at prayer position. And it's a state of being that is inner peace. So when you accept life as it is, when you apply that 5-minute rule and you accept, okay, I can't change that this thing happened that sucks. And it's okay to say that it sucks. I wasn't happy I was in a car accident, but I realized I can't change that I was in a car accident. I'm going to have to deal with my reality as it is now. I can either be miserable for an indefinite amount of time over something I can't change. Being miserable doesn't change it. It just ruins my mental and emotional well-being. Or I can accept that I was in a car accident. I can accept that I have 11 broken bones. And this is what I told my dad, by the way, this is a good way to bring this story to a close, or this lesson. The doctors called my parents in 2 weeks after the crash. 1 week after I came out of the coma. So I had been awake for a week, and I had been talking to a therapist and psychologists and my doctors and so on and so forth. And they had been, asking me lots of questions. And my doctors called my parents and they said, we're concerned with Hal. We believe that he is in denial. And they said, he's always laughing and smiling and joking. And they said, that's not normal behavior unless he can't handle his reality. So he's just checked out of it. And he's just acting like everything's okay, but eventually he's going to have to face reality. And so my dad came in and said, the doctors are concerned. He explained everything and their theory as to the fact they thought I couldn't accept reality. And I said, Dad, it's the opposite of that. I've completely accepted reality. I can't change that I was in a car accident. So what's the point in feeling sorry for myself? What's the point in being angry with the drunk driver? That doesn't change anything. It just creates inner turmoil for me that ruins my quality of life. I said, and here's the end goal, Dad. 2 things. Number 1, the doctors say I will never walk again. If that is my fate, if that is the reality, which I'm not believing that it is until I'm proven otherwise. They don't know what's possible, right? They know what's likely statistically, but I believe that we have the ability with our mind to affect our biology and heal our body. And I know you know a lot more about this even than I do. And so I said, if I'm in a wheelchair the rest of my life, and this is the lesson for everybody listening, hear this story and apply it to the things in your life, in your past or your present, that cause you a pain, and you think it's the thing that's causing you the pain, but I'm here to invite you to consider it's your resistance to reality that's causing the pain. And so I said, Dad, if I'm in a wheelchair the rest of my life, I've already decided I will be the happiest, most grateful person that you've ever seen in a wheelchair, because I'm in a wheelchair either way. And I will not let my unchangeable circumstances in my life determine my choosable mental and emotional well-being. And so I've applied that to, it's one of the most important lessons I've learned is that 5-minute rule. It gives you the space to feel upset for 5 minutes. And by the way, so when you're new to this, the first time I tried the 5-minute rule, I set the timer for 5 minutes and I was still upset. And I'm like, this is BS. It doesn't work. I need and I reset the timer for 5 minutes. And they took me like 3 times, like 15 minutes. And eventually I started to calm down. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll accept it. But after a few weeks of this, I didn't even need 5 minutes, because I would set the timer for 5 minutes. I'd be upset and I'd look at the timer and go, I got 4 minutes left. What's the point in being upset for 4 more minutes? I'm just going to accept it now and be at peace and move on. And I've applied this to losing loved ones in my life. I've applied this to traffic, where I go, what's the point in being upset over traffic? I'm late anyway. I might as well enjoy every moment. And that to me is the objective of life, is accept the things you can't change so that you can be at peace with them and enjoy every moment of this one life that you've been blessed to live.
Amen, 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 amen. And what I know that is also inherent with everything that you're saying is that we truly can only have so much energy and resources to direct our brain and to
Yeah.
direct our body. And so it's either we give that towards what we want and set ourselves up for the possibility, or we continue to, for a better choice of words, beat a dead horse in terms of like, I'm just going to keep commiserating, complaining, because no, it isn't fair. There are so many things in life that aren't fair. They're tragic. They'll never be right
Yep.
or fun or easy. But there is that real liberating idea of what happened. I cannot change it. So what can I change? And it's always me, right?
Yep.
And it's always that internal dialogue and how I want to live in this situation that isn't ideal, that isn't fun, but what do I have control over?
Yep.
And I know, because I've lived it and I know you have, it's that choice that makes you show up completely differently, that leads you towards that possibility versus living and reinforcing the limitation.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and you said something that, you said something which is true for all, like, it's not fair. This thing that happened, I didn't deserve it. Right. Like, for example, if you were abused as a child, right? I was beaten up by my, I was bullied, but my parents were really good to me, right? But it's like, if the people that brought you into the world were abusing you, that's not fair. No, you didn't deserve that. But here's something to consider is we didn't deserve a lot of the things that maybe someone else did to us that was unjust, that was unfair. But I'll tell you what you also don't deserve: to continue perpetuating mental and emotional pain over that thing that's not happening anymore. It happened a while ago. Or even if it is happening right now, like, I've realized that when you're in the midst of adversity, right? Like the car accident, whatever, or if you're in the midst of like financial challenges, which a lot of people are right now, and optimizing your mental and emotional well-being may be the most important decision that you can make. Like, that's it. Right? When I'm going through, I've been talking openly on my podcast about how I've recently been going through a lot of stress and overwhelm and anxiety and some depression and just a lot. I'm in the middle of this book launch, and it's like, it's kicking my butt. Like, it's really overwhelming me. I've never felt so overwhelmed. I've never had so many people that are needing things from me. And I suffer from brain damage, not only from the car accident, but from, it's another story, but chemotherapy for 700 hours. I had cancer 5 years ago. I did over 700 hours of chemotherapy against my better judgment. It's a whole other story. But my brain damage from the car accident pales in comparison to how I now am impacted after that chemotherapy. And so where people like read my books and, and I'm able to write and I can articulate, but thinking is really challenging for me. And so the point is, the other day I shared on social media, I'm like, you guys, you know me, I write, I speak, that's what you see on the surface. But what you don't see is I struggle every day with my mental health. Like, I suffer from severe brain damage, and I struggle in ways you wouldn't imagine, with anxiety, with depression. And so I said, the question I start every day with is, how can I optimize my mental and emotional well-being this morning, and throughout the day? I believe it's the single most important question for you to ask and answer, especially when you're in the midst of challenges, because this is the last thing I'll say. Ashley, I'll turn it back over to you, which is, we've been conditioned, and it's a lie. We've been conditioned to believe that when bad things happen, I have to feel bad. And then when good things happen, that's when I get to feel good. And I want to offer you a new paradigm. No matter what happens, you get to feel how you decide to feel, no matter what happens. And so, back to you.
No, it's so powerful. And first of all, I'm new levels, new devils, right? That I always say to my clients.
I like that. I've never heard that before. I like that.
You're at a new level.
I always say "Mo Money, Mo Problems" from Notorious Big in the 90s, but I like yours better.
They're both good. We can use them in coordination. But I also, first of all, not only have you gone through so much challenges at such a significant level, and we haven't even talked about your cancer story yet, but they did have a lasting impact. And what I want to point out is that it's also easy, not just when you're going through something, but on the other side of it, to continue to point to it in a way that, well, now because of this, I give myself an out of achieving what I want, because we're still attached to this story that is real, like you just shared. There has been an impact because, and I know that too, when your body goes through some significant things, it's amazing. It was designed to heal, but it doesn't mean that it didn't go through it.
Yeah.
And there's an impact, and we have to be, that's why we're all the more passionate about taking care of it. But I love that you're pointing that out. Like people, I think so often they'll see what you've gone through and now you're superhuman, right? And you are that, and I am me. And it allows me to kind of give myself an excuse because and I'm speaking rhetorically in terms of everyone listening, right? I've gone through these things. It damaged me. So now I have these barriers of limitation on what I perceive I can do. And that's why I love that you're also sharing, like, just because you've literally faced Goliath twice, it doesn't mean now that you're still not a human with an impact of what you've gone through, that you still have to choose to take control of and to condition your mind and condition your body to face what you're facing today. Because as long as we live, we'll still have those challenges. And so I'm glad that you point to that, because people would think, well, you've overcome that. Like life must be pretty easy, right? Now. And no one would ever look at you and guess that that is a challenge, which I always say, we don't know what we don't know. And it's very easy to just make perceptions upon what we think people, live like, or what it's like to live their life. And we don't know. It's that choice. And that's often the hard thing to really sit in the truth of, because that means I have to take personal responsibility for my life and for my mind and for my internal dialogue, separate from any diagnosis. Like, this is me. What do I choose each day?
Yeah.
And that's powerful.
Yeah. I think that for all of us, when you're going through adversity, one of the ways that I find peace in it is going, this is for a bigger purpose. It's so that I can help other people with what they're going through, and to me, I think that if you can always, one of my mentors used to say, take your focus off self and on purpose, right? Mm-hmm. When we're feeling depressed and anxious, we're almost always focused on ourselves. How am I showing up? What's going on? What's in my head? Oh my gosh, I can't think straight. Oh, I'm not right. We're all over ourselves. Now imagine if you're like sitting there on that couch and you're anxious and you're depressed and you're stressed out and you're worried, right? And then someone you love screams from the other room. They need you, right? In the instant that your focus shifts from yourself to the purpose of helping, oh my God, what do they need? You're not depressed anymore. It went away instantly. And then you go and you help, and you're fixing the situation, the emergency, you're handling it, right? And you're like, and when you're on purpose, you're liberated from your own self-imposed suffering. And then as soon as you go back to the couch, you're like, oh, where was I? Oh yeah, I was depressed and thinking about all the bad things in my life and how incapable. And this is true for me. Like, I'm not saying this is other people. This is me, right? So I realized that if you can really shift your focus, and for me, my miracle morning is so important, like having affirmations that remind me of this every single day, to take my focus off self. Like, it's on self in terms of I want to wake up every day and focus on optimizing my mental and emotional well-being and getting into the best state I can be to serve other people. That's the me focus, right? Is how can I be at my best today for those I love and those I lead? And then once I get there, that's my miracle morning. Now the rest of my focus is how can I serve? How can I serve? How can I add value to this person in this situation? And when you take that focus only on yourself to be at your best, and then the rest of the day is about serving the best of the moment, the best of the situation, the best of the person in front of you. To me, that's kind of the formula for living a liberated life.
Absolutely. And that turns your pain into purpose.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And we as human beings need to feel purposeful, to feel fulfilled, which then leads us to feeling a sense of happiness, right? So with what you just said, I want to talk about the miracle morning because, and I love something that you say, because I say it to my clients all the time. We are always wanting, and our brain wants to do that anyways, just to hold us stuck and familiar. We're complicating everything. And so it's like, well, I want this like huge complicated solution to what's going to fix me and change me and totally alter my life. And it's like fundamentals, but there's such a disconnect between learning and actually doing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And we don't do stuff because we've heard them or they seem too simplistic in nature to actually have an impact. But that's really what keeps us from doing them and seeing the profound impact of consistently doing these things that condition our mind and our internal state to live in an empowered state, regardless of what we're going through. So you have a new book coming out. We're gonna talk about that, but let's go to the Miracle Morning, because I mean, this is like, I think you've broken the record. Doesn't it have like over 50,000 5-star reviews on Amazon? I mean,
It's got 50,000 across Goodreads and Amazon, I think.
Okay.
Amazon's like 20 some thousand, but no, there are people. Who is it? James Clear, Atomic Habits, has over 100,000 reviews on Amazon, and Rich Dad Poor Dad has over 100,000 reviews. So it's definitely a good amount of reviews, but no, they
it's getting up there, though, I would say. So obviously people resonate with it, and it's impacted them. So let's just talk about that, because we've all heard how you start your day sets your day, right?
Yeah.
But often people have heard that so much, they're like, oh, yeah, right? And we disregard it. So talk to us about the Miracle Morning, those routines that changed you and obviously many people's lives.
Yeah. I mean, I'll start where we are now, and then I'll work backward. And so the Miracle Morning started as a self-published book that I published in 2012. I was an unknown author. No one knew who I was, but it was this morning ritual that I had created in my own life in 2008 when I was at like the lowest point in my life. Basically, in fact, we're not going to start where we are now and go backward. We're going to start there and work our way up. Here we go. So in 2008, when the U.S. economy crashed, I crashed with it. I was an entrepreneur. I had my own coaching business. I lost over half of my clients in a matter of months, therefore half of my income. I could not pay my mortgage anymore, and so I literally stopped paying my mortgage, and my house was foreclosed on by the bank. I went from being debt-free, like Dave Ramsey, debt-free student, to I had $52,000 in personal credit card debt in like a month. So I mean, I was in 6 months, I was like $8,000 a month. And so I was desperate. I was depressed. I was scared. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was losing my house that I had just bought a year and a half ago, my first house. I'm like, I thought I was living the dream. Now it's a nightmare. And a series of events led me to a Jim Rohn quote. I was listening to this audio from Jim Rohn, and this gave birth to the Miracle Morning. He said, your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development. And when I heard that, I quantified it immediately. Like my brain just quantified it. And I went, okay, well, wait a minute. I want, on a scale of 1 to 10, what level of success do I want in every area of my life? Well, if 10 is the best, I want 10. And if you're listening to this, think about that, right? That's human nature. We all want life. We want to be as happy and healthy and wealthy, and we want our relationships. We want as much love. We want life to be as good as it possibly can be. And so I realized I want level 10 success in every area of my life. And then the next question was, well, if Jim Rohn says your level of success won't exceed your level of personal development, well, what's my level of personal development? And at that time in my life, I was in a bad spot. I was, sleeping till the last minute. I was depressed. I was working all day. And my level of personal development was like at a 2, like maybe a 3 or a 4 on a good day. And I realized that's the disconnect for our society. For me at that time, and for most people, is everybody wants level 10 success and fulfillment in their lives, but very few people have a dedicated daily personal development practice that incorporates the best personal development rituals to ensure that they become a level 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and work your way up and become better. Because as you get better every day, your level of success parallels your level of personal development. And so I had that epiphany, and I was like, okay, I've got to go research what do the world's most successful people in all walks of life do for personal development. And I'm going to figure out like the 1 or 2 things that I can model to create a daily personal development ritual. And I'm going to become the person that I need to be to create the success I want in my life, right? Theoretically, this could be it. And I went online and I just Googled, like, what are the best personal development practices? What do millionaires do for personal development? What do the most successful people in the world do? On and on. And I was looking for 1 or 2 practices. I ended up with a list of 6. It was meditation, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and journaling. And depending on which millionaire or billionaire or world champion athlete you asked, they usually had one of those at the top of their list. Like a lot of the best athletes in the world swear by their visualization practice, right? They visualize themselves performing at their best before they actually get on the court or on the field, so that when they do, they've already mentally rehearsed how they need to show up. And I was like, well, I should do that in my daily life. And then I saw this clip with Will Smith. This was pre-Chris Rock slap. So like his name carried a very different weight when you used to say it back then. It was like, oh, beloved Will Smith. I still think, yeah, whatever. So
we all are imperfect, aren't we?
Yes. we all slap comedians occasionally at award shows. It's like, let he who has not. All right. So, cast the first stone. Ellen DeGeneres asked him on her show. She said, Will, how'd you go from being like middle-class Philly guy to like Oscar award-winning actor, rap album, NAMI, Grammy-nominated rapper? I mean, you're, on and on. Like you're everything you do is great. He said, when I was 15 years old, I learned about affirmations and I started applying them to my life where I would articulate in writing. He goes, I didn't use the cheesy, like, I am awesome. He said, it was mostly like I articulated what I wanted in my life, what I was committed to in terms of the results and the outcomes. Then I articulated who I needed to be to generate those results, and then what I needed to do to become that person so I could generate those results. He said, I wrote that out. I lived with it every day. So I'm like, well, I got to do affirmations. And then as I went through each of those 6 practices, they were all equally valuable. And so the light bulb moment, as I almost threw in the towel and I was like, I can't do all these. Like, what am I going to do? I went, what if I did all of them? What if I woke up an hour earlier tomorrow and I did the 6 most timeless, proven personal development practices in the history of humanity that the world's most successful people have sworn by for centuries? I thought that would be the ultimate personal development ritual. Woke up the next morning. And by the way, I want to be really clear for everybody listening. If you're not a morning person, join the club. Me and roughly 72% of the over 2 million people that do the Miracle Morning every day around the world have said they were not a morning person until they read the book. That was a very important focus as I was writing the Miracle Morning, is how do I get someone over that limiting belief of I'm not a morning person? How do you become one?
Right.
So I wake up the next morning, I do all 6 practices, and I'm like, wow, this is it. If I start every day with this much intention and focus and clarity and confidence and energy and enthusiasm and motivation, it is only a matter of time before I become the person that I need to be to create and sustain the success I want in my life. And I was thinking it would take a year, right? I was thinking like the compound effect, 1% better every day. Eventually things will turn around. And Ashley, it happened in less than 2 months. And keep in mind, this is in the worst recession that in the middle of it. I more than doubled my income in 2 months. And I didn't get a new job. I just figured out a way through the books I was reading and the affirmations and the visualization I doubled the amount of coaching clients I had in 2 months in the recession. And then I went from being in the worst shape of my life physically to committing to run a 52-mile ultra marathon because I hated running. And I could never run over a mile in PE class. And I thought, what better way to become a level 10 version of myself physically, not to mention mentally, than to commit at that level? And I was scared to death, but I was like, I'm just going to figure it out. And my depression didn't take 2 months to go away. It started fading day after day after day on day 1 because I now had a proven, virtually guaranteed process to become the person to transform my life. And after 2 months, I went to my wife in the hall. I can picture the moment. I said, sweetheart, I signed on 2 more coaching clients today. We've doubled our income in the last 2 months. It's all because of this morning routine. It feels like a miracle. She goes, it's your miracle morning. I go, I love that, miracle morning. I never knew it would be a book idea, but I started teaching my coaching clients one after another. They're like, I'm not a morning person, but I'll try it. And then 2 weeks later, they'd come back to their call and go, oh my gosh, Hal, it worked. I'm having these amazing results. And kind of the rest is history. 3 years later, self-published the book. And now 11 years later, we're about to release, which I'm so excited. We'll talk more about later, but the updated and expanded edition that I've rewritten every page, added 40 pages of new content. It is truly new and improved. And that's the Miracle Morning in a nutshell.
Amazing. And here's what I love is that you took, again, what we talked about, that disconnect between learning and doing, and you thought, I'm going to actually do it. Right? Yeah. Versus, again, oh, that's them, that's me. What does that really matter? But it's that compounding effect and the coordination between the principles, right? That then you're conditioning your mind, you're conditioning your state, and then you're showing up different. And that's the other key, right? Because if you start your morning that way, and now you're more conditioned to what's possible versus waking up and being automatically, that's our brain's default into what isn't working, what is scarce, what is the lack, what is the impossibility.
Our survival instinct,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's validated if you're especially going through something that's really hard. So you're conditioning your mind to now then the rest of the day, you take different actions, you show up completely different because now you're really in that state of, belief and possibility. And so now it's not just what you do in the morning, but it's definitely how that influences you to show up each day throughout the day completely differently. Right?
Well,
And that's the other key.
completely. Yeah. I was gonna say,
You
what
know,
I realized is that how you start your day sets the tone, the context, and the direction for the rest of the day. So if
mhm.
you have an unproductive morning where you hit the snooze button until the last minute, you roll out of bed, right? And like you said, our brains are problem-seeking machines. You literally are like,
Yes,
where's that problem? Oh yeah, that's the problem I was thinking about yesterday. I was
there it
thinking about it
is.
again today,
Yeah.
right? But when you start your day in a peak, like that's what I say the miracle morning does, is it starts your day in a peak mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual state, so that you are literally at your best to show up at your best every single day. And if you are in a difficult time in your life, to me, which is when I started my miracle morning, I was at a low point. Like it's even more important, right? It's even more important so that you're like, okay, this can be the one thing that changes everything. When you change the way you start your day, you put yourself in a position to change any or every aspect of your life.
I can attest to this. When I went through my second health experience with chronic pain, I mean, I was woken up every day, middle of the night, 3 a.m.,
Mm.
because pain loves the night. And so how I woke up was awful, right? I was exhausted. I was in hell, really. And so it was all the more important. It was very easy to feel the hell, to feel the unfairness, to feel the impossibility. And that's when, even more than when I was sick when I was younger, it became so important. I'm going to wake up to this pain, and therefore my current limitations and what doctors are saying I can't heal, I have got to condition. And so I would not get out of bed until
Yeah.
I would go through certain practices in alignment with what you speak about. Because again, yes, they're proven. It's just because they seem so quote simplistic, we don't do them. And even then, because of that, I could show up in my life, even though my life was hard with what I was living through, the financial stresses we were living through because of all the money we had put towards my health, which I know you know, and anyone who's gone through significant health challenges knows. But then it allowed me to navigate the experience differently. It didn't change in that moment. It did change my pain long term, right? Because here I am now. But
Sure.
in that moment, it didn't change my circumstances, but it changed me and how I navigated my circumstances, which then is what actually changed my circumstances.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It all starts internally, right? I think that I mentioned earlier that the most important decision we can make every day is to optimize our mental and emotional well-being. Because if you think about it, your quality of life begins and ends with your mental and emotional well-being. Meaning
Sure.
you need to optimize your mental and emotional well-being to actually be optimistic and be proactive and be motivated and take action and create energy and momentum, right? Like on the front end, you need an optimal state to move forward. But then on the back end, and even throughout, right, you need an optimal state to manage the hurdles, right? Because what is it when new levels, new devils, right?
Yes.
Um, right. And so you need that. Your state it's a daily thing, right? Like
Yeah.
for me, optimizing my state, I do it every day with the Miracle Morning. In fact, I have a habit tracker right now where I like literally wrote use the savers, which we can get to what the savers are the 6 practices: silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. So meditation became silence, reading or journaling became scribing, and that you get your savers. So anyway, but every day I have a goal right now that like use my savers. It's a reminder to optimize my mental and emotional state. And then at the end, if you achieve success, you see so many people that are, celebrities are a great example of like they've achieved everything they ever wanted, but they turned to drugs or alcohol because they thought joy, happiness, fulfillment, contentment was going to be found in the outer that they were pursuing. And then they got it and they're like, wait, I didn't learn how to love my life as it was. And so now that I have the life I thought I wanted, I don't know how to love what I have. I'm always pursuing something better, trying to find joy and fulfillment in that. And so again, optimizing your mental and emotional state, which is kind of the number one objective of the Miracle Morning, needs to be done for you to achieve the things you want and then for you to enjoy the things you achieve.
Absolutely. And I would just tell people, what do you have to lose to actually give it a try? Like, get the book, start it. Like, I think we could say, and I think you would say, I promise you, if you do, like, your life is going to be positively impacted. Like, what do you have to lose? You know what it looks like to not do this in the morning, to not condition your mind. Why don't you see what happens if you consistently do this? You
Yeah.
know, do people always say, well, I don't have time. And I always say, you don't have time to not. This is
Yeah.
the thing that directs everything else in your life. Like these practices taking the time.
And you don't have, it's important. I'm glad you said that, because the miracle morning can be done in 6 minutes or in 60 minutes. There's literally a
Yeah,
chapter in the book called the 6 minute miracle morning. And I don't
I love
recommend that
that.
that's like your daily practice, because it's, you don't have a lot of time to go deep. But if you do 60 seconds of meditation, and then you read your affirmations for a minute, and then you visualize your day going the way you want it to for a minute, and then you do 60 seconds of jumping jacks, and then you read a page out of a book, right? Like that only takes you, I mean, literally 6 minutes, and you are 10 times better than you were before you did those 6 minutes. Most people do a 30-minute miracle morning, which is like 5 minutes for each of the save, right? So the point being, and I always say, like, if that means that you watch 6 or 30 minutes less of Netflix at night, right? Or, and it's to go to bed 30 minutes earlier, to wake up 30 minutes earlier, for literally to do the 6 most life-changing practices in the history of humanity, like, what could be better time trade, if you will.
Absolutely. And can I just, as a total side note, just also acknowledge something between us?
Sure.
Your wife coined the miracle morning,
Yes.
right? And when I was creating my process based in neuroscience to rewire the nervous system, I was talking to my husband about the different aspects, and he's like, why don't you call it bio-emotional healing? And I'm like, yes. So just a
Yeah.
credit and thanks to our
We
spouses,
married our
right?
muses,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, you married your muse, I married my muse, yeah.
I'm forever grateful for that, as I'm sure you are to your wife, because it's look where it is now.
Yeah.
So when does this updated version come out?
So it officially publishes on 12/12/2023, December 12th,
Okay.
2023, but you can pre-order it right now, or as of September 12th, and you get a bunch of pre-order bonuses. So if you go to miraclemorningbook.com, and you can pre-order one copy, and then you get the immediate implementation kit. And the reason for that is I figured, hey, people are pre-ordering, like, let's give an incentive so that it's worth it to pre-order rather than wait till the book comes out. And so you get a master class, a video master class, which is me talking about, like, going really deep into the miracle morning beyond the original book, and like a lot of the new content from the new book. You get a miracle morning PDF, which has what's new in the new book and a sneak peek. It has the miracle evening bedtime affirmations and the miracle life affirmations. And those are two new chapters in the new book. One is the miracle evening, which is your strategy for blissful bedtime and better sleep. And then the miracle life, which is your path to inner freedom. And those are the two new chapters that I added to the new book, in addition to writing the whole thing. And then you also get 2 guided meditations, the miracle evening guided meditation and the miracle life guided meditation. So if you pre-order the book at miraclemorningbook.com, you get all those bonuses. And then there's bonuses for, like, if you get 5 copies, you get to attend a live online event called the Miracle Year that I'm putting on in December, and all sorts of other fun bonuses are on that page.
Amazing. We'll definitely, and when this airs, it will be after September 12th. So I want to encourage everybody to go and pre-order this. And in all truthfulness, we haven't even dived into the second part of your journey, and with your health and with cancer, which I know so many people can relate to. So I'm going to propose we come back another time and talk about that,
Yeah.
and hopefully in conjunction too with your second book too, the Miracle Equation, because we haven't even talked about that. This is how remarkable your life is, Hal, right? And with all that you have to share, because there's so much more to even dive into.
Yeah, that's actually a good way to do it, is because, so the the Miracle Equation, which is my follow-up book to the Miracle Morning. Yeah, I wrote that after a very life-altering, changing, difficult cancer journey. And so yeah, so Ashley, I love talking to you. We'll do this again, and we'll talk about the cancer journey and how that led to the Miracle Equation, and how people can use that in their own life to create miracles.
I love that. Again, I want to emphasize that, because that's my mission as well, is that you're just not an inspiration story.
Mm.
You have put it into action steps for other people to create that miracle, that change, that outcome in their life, that it doesn't matter even if all the experts are telling you what isn't possible. And I know everything you've achieved in your life, as is mine, it's all been done against what we were told
Sure.
we could do, or
Yeah.
what was possible. And so I love, again, that you've put that into action. So we're going to come back part 2 and talk about that. I want people to start with the Miracle Morning because I absolutely believe that you've got to start conditioning your mind from when you wake up. It's not that it's impossible to try not to, but it's really hard.
Yeah.
And you direct that focus. So before we finish up, my life motto and in the podcast is, you're not what happens to you. You're who you choose to become. And you are definitely evident. Your whole life is evidence of that. But what would you say to that and how that has influenced you in your life and your mission?
I love that you say the word become. It's literally like on the back of the new edition of the book, it starts by saying something along the lines of, I don't have it in front of me. We've been conditioned to believe that the secret to success is doing more, but it's actually becoming more. And to me, the one thing you can control is who you're becoming every single day. And for me, the Miracle Morning is right. It was about becoming that level 10 version of myself, the best version of myself, so that I could create everything that I wanted in my life. And so, so I love that. I think that it's arguably one of the most important focuses, because when we focus on the things we can't control, we feel out of control. And ever since 2020, we've all had what's out of our control just shoved in our face in so many ways. And we've got to take back control of our lives by focusing on waking up every day, becoming the best version of ourselves, and showing up at our best for those we love and those we lead.
I love that. And I would say this is timely because I think there's going to be more shoving in our face here soon about what we can't control. And so this is timely. I mean, it always is. So besides going to miraclemorningbook.com, Hal, where can everybody find you?
Yeah, miraclemorning.com is probably the best place to go for all things. There's the Miracle Morning movie. We didn't talk about that, but there is a 90-minute full-length documentary that takes you beyond the book, and it documents my cancer journey because I was diagnosed halfway through filming. And rather than cancel the movie, which I was going to put it on hold, my director said, no, we've got to film your cancer journey. That's now what the movie's become. And I was like, okay. I wasn't planning on that, but yeah. And then you can also download the Miracle Morning app, Google Play Store, App Store, or if you go to miraclemorning.com, you'll find it there. But that's the hub for everything, is miraclemorning.com.
Okay, wonderful. And I know you can find your podcast there and everything in your social media, and we'll link that here on the notes too, because you are just a person to follow. Not only do you preach it, you've lived it. And I just, from one kindred soul to another, I'm so grateful for the light that you share and the plan that you give people to create that in their life. So we'll look forward to having you back. We'll talk more about the second book, the movie, your second journey. And until that time, everyone, remember, you're not what happens to you. You're who you choose to become.
Amen.
If you're enjoying this podcast and have questions about where you're feeling stuck in your life or about bioemotional healing coaching, I want to encourage you to come to my free monthly coaching call. It's called Ask Ashley. I will spend time answering questions, coaching you, and teaching concepts. You'll get a better understanding of what I do and how bioemotional healing can help you rewire your brain. My goal is that every time you listen to this podcast or come to this free monthly coaching call, you'll leave with a greater understanding of how your brain works and feel empowered to make changes in your life. To sign up for that call, go to ashleydelello.com/Ask Ashley. Thanks again for joining me today. Remember to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast app. And as always, thank you for sharing the Bioemotional Healing Podcast with your friends.